Welcome back to the F1 2018 Kimi Career. Today it is round 8 of the 2018 Formula 1 World Championship. We go to Paul Ricard in France. Anybody remember that? It seems like a distant memory. I think the last race around Paul Ricard was either 2022 or 23. I certainly remember watching it in 2022, but probably not after that. Fortunately, I have done a few laps of the circuit and got to know the layout. As I've said before, by the time we got to these Formula 1 games, I'd stopped playing, so I don't know the circuit that well, but I've done some practice laps, so hopefully that will help us in this Grand Prix. It is intensely close in the World Championship battle so far against three drivers. You can see that Valtteri Bottas leads the World Championship by 2 points only to Sebastian Vettel, and he is 9 points ahead of ourselves, playing as Kimi Raikkonen. Lewis Hamilton, and I hate to mention Lewis Hamilton every single race, but it is a talking point every time round, has had a torrid start to the season. We finally saw what I can remember to be the first battle between Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton last time out at the Canadian Grand Prix. But Lewis once again plagued by a mechanical failure early into the Canadian Grand Prix. That takes his tally to 2 this season, 3 races where he's not been in the points. So that's meant that Lewis just hasn't got off to a good start whatsoever in the championship. So you would say it's a 3-horse race at the moment. Daniel Ricciardo's in there. He's really helped himself out. He's had, is it 2 or 3 race wins? I think he's had 2 race wins so far in this championship season. But he's been really solid, so that's helped him have an outside chance of being in the World Championship hunt. Realistically, it's a 3-horse race. And Ferrari are zooming away with the constructors at the moment. Of course, not helped. Mercedes aren't helped by the poor performance from Lewis Hamilton so far. Charles Leclerc put himself in P12 in the championship. He's had a good jump after finishing in P5 in the last race in Canada, so a very good result from the Monegasque driver there. But in the midfield, you can see just how bad a season Lewis is having, with Nico Hülkenberg being on an equal amount of points as him, and Max Verstappen in the Red Bulls just hasn't got started at all. But here we go then for the 8th race in France. Thanks again for all your support so far on this series. I really appreciate it. And we're going to jump straight into the qualifying session. Well, that's not great. We've been held up massively on our opening banker lap. Here's a good time to show you what it's all about, though, here at France. I find like this last sector in particular just isn't flowing at all. I really struggle to get perfect lines around the last sector. The first 2 sectors are okay, but the last sector is really difficult, I find, to find a good line around. So we were a couple of tenths off Lewis Hamilton's time after the second sector. You could see there we were held up, so that's not going to be a representative time whatsoever. I don't think we've got enough fuel really to get around for a second lap time. So our first banker lap ends in a bit of disappointment there. And again, I don't think there'll be any penalties for the drivers ahead, unfortunately, for holding us up on that lap. Well, that's a lot more promising in Sector 1. Our first lap was a bit scruffy even in the first 2 sectors, so that's a massive improvement in Sector 1. We're purple so far. We were still an overall purple at the end of Sector 2, but I think we were a little bit down in Sector 2. I just think that was the overall lap time. But here we go, across the line. What's it going to be? It puts up to P1 in this session. That is massive. We did have to come out there for a second lap. We'll have to do 3 runs in this session. I wanted to get that second run in to get a representative lap time in, which is what our banker lap was designed to do. But as a second quote-unquote banker lap there, that's not a bad time. And 31.1, what does that put us above Lewis Hamilton? Hamilton are 31.6, so half a second clear of the field. I'll tell you something, I wasn't expecting that. 38.3 in the last sector, 38.2 from Lewis. So, I mean, we do know from the last race in Canada that there can be quite a bit of improvement between runs. But to have half a second on the field, it's something I really didn't expect at this point. The traffic don't know how to move on this game. I'm convinced of it. 2 Saubers in this session, and 2 cars that just don't get out of the way. I was tempted to go up the inside. I thought, no, he'll move out the way, will Charles Leclerc. And that didn't happen. But so far, fortunately, as it stands, we're still on pole. I don't know what the lap times have been. I can see Valtteri Bottas has jumped Sebastian Vettel. Vettel was P3, but we have got drivers on flying laps. I think that is our teammate Sebastian Vettel just in behind as we take out the 100-metre board. Better get out of the way here. I think that's Seb, and he's stuck behind Lance Stroll, so I don't think Sebastian Vettel's going to improve. Let's have a look what the rest of the guys have done. I think it could be pole position for us here, and it is by quite a margin as well. 0.4 of a second to Lewis Hamilton. Sebastian only 4th. You have to wonder what he could have done had he not been held up behind the Williams car. I think the key really is to get out there while it's quiet, because it just seems that the drivers won't move out the way. I mean, Leclerc and Ericsson there, and Lewis Hamilton to a degree, who was behind Marcus Ericsson. But nevertheless, that is a result I really didn't expect. I thought that Sector 3 at this track would really plague us. I thought we'd be at least half a second down on the AI, but we weren't. And it's the second time we've took pole this season, and we've took pole with Lewis Hamilton on the front row with us again. Sebastian's in P4, but is this our chance for a second race win of the season? And only being 11 points behind Valtteri Bottas now, a chance to really get into this championship battle for the first time this season.
It looks like it could be a tense round of the championship here as we prepare to get today's race underway.
Here we go then for the French Grand Prix. Once again, no issue with the strategy, but have a look at that session forecast. Well, I'm umming and ahhing whether we go on the super softs, but I think we stay with everybody else's strategy. I don't see the point of giving ourselves a potential disadvantage at the start of this race that we can't recoup at the end, even though what my thinking is to go on the super softs and only have to do the one stop onto the intermediates, or possibly wet tyres. But we'll stick with this at the moment. So we know in the back of our head that there could be a twist at the end of this 25% race. Only 13 laps did that say round here, which it feels like it's going to be quite a short race then, really. 13 laps. I'm leading, maintain pace. Woohoo, that's only the second time we've had to do that this season. But a good start round here. Let's see if we can maintain the lead going into turn 1. And let's see what the rest of the race brings. In a bit of a strategy change from usual, the two McLarens are starting on the super soft tyres. So watch out for those, possibly if they can keep their super softs running until the possible wet conditions. But apart from that, everybody else starts on the ultra softs. You don't expect much variation in strategy in these 25% races. And I think that's the first time that anybody has started on a different tyre that I can recall in these races so far this season. But we're getting ready for the off. The Williams at the back have got lined up on the grid. The lights illuminate above the drivers. And they're away for this French Grand Prix. Just try and hold Lewis Hamilton off, but we can't. Lewis jumps at the moment, but can we get him back into the first corner? We brake late. Lewis Hamilton still up the inside. We hold the outside line, give Lewis the racing room, but Lewis backs out of that one, so we still retain our P1 position going into, I think this is turn 3, isn't it here? Sebastian Vettel has jumped ahead of Valtteri Bottas at the start, so that's good news for Team Ferrari. A good start for us there. I did think Lewis might have got us possibly. He did going into the first corner. Again, we gave him the racing room, I think, there. There was no issues as such, but Lewis backed out of that, and that is a solid start from us. Solid first lap, 6 tenths pulled to Lewis Hamilton. If we can gain 3 or 4 tenths on this lap, then we are out of the DRS threat. Trying to keep some more fuel back on this occasion. Staying standard mix. Again, in a lot of the races so far, I've used a lot of that rich fuel mix early on, and that's not given us much fighting power towards the end of the race. We got that corner a little bit wrong there. I think Lewis Hamilton might have gained a tenth or two there. You can see the arrow is much closer than it was before. But the time gap relatively stable to Lewis, 6 tenths. So let's see if we can push out in these last 2 sectors to avoid the Mercedes driver getting DRS. Fastest lap of the race, but we're only a tenth ahead, further ahead of Lewis Hamilton than we were at the end of the last lap. So it looks like he'll get DRS the next go around. Noting that we are pitting at the end of the next lap, we're certainly not going to pit at the end of this lap. No doubt that strategy change is driven by me pushing the tyres more than the team would like, but I think we're going to be okay until the end of the next lap. But here is where the DRS frick comes in, so let's stick with it until then. We have got the 1.2 seconds on Lewis Hamilton. Maybe Lewis made a mistake because that first sector was nothing special, but Sebastian Vettel's going to have the DRS on Lewis crucially here. You can see on the minimap down below that Vettel is gaining. I think he's side by side and he has got past Lewis Hamilton for now. Let's see if he keeps that into the braking zone. We've just got to keep an eye on our own drivers, make sure we don't do anything silly. But Vettel has got past Lewis for the moment. Valtteri Bottas right in behind him. And at the moment, we're heading for a second Ferrari 1-2 in a row. Early days, I know, but a good start nevertheless. Into the pits we cut them, and it's a battle of the pit crews. It's Ferrari against Mercedes. We've been held up massively. But fortunately, I think Lewis has been held up as well. It was Verstappen who came in first, and the team just didn't want to release us after that. So at least, I think, yes, we're out ahead of Lewis Hamilton. But what's that going to do to our opponents, Sebastian Vettel and Valtteri Bottas, who are going to be pitting next? Fortunately, with that, we don't come out into any traffic yet. We have got that train of Lance Stroll and co in front, so that could be a problem. Just get through these first few corners. We have gained, I would say, a little bit on Lewis Hamilton. I think the gap was about 1.6 seconds to Lewis Hamilton, so that gap I think is a bit more than it was before, so that's positive. But we've just got to push as much as we can on this lap to avoid getting jumped by Seb and Valtteri. So 10 minutes till the rain, so that's going to be 3:10 is 2 laps. I feel like it's probably going to come too close to the end to have an impact. It's probably going to be, if it is just over 10 minutes, then it's going to be lap 12 or 13. So the last few laps should be tasty. Don't know if it's going to come into it necessarily, but let's see what happens nevertheless. We're coming right up to this Williams train now, and we know the McLaren is on the super soft tyre, so we're going to have to overtake the McLaren on track. And one of the Williams, it seems that they're pitting a little bit later on. I think Bottas has jumped Seb in the pits, but no issue of the overcut there from those guys. The unfortunate thing is that Bottas has jumped Seb in the pits. We're going to have to overtake these two guys, much slower than us here, as you would expect. We're going to have to try and dart down the inside of Sorokin, I think, into the next corner. But Sorokin, a bit stupidly really, defending the place. He's got nothing to fight for there. It's not for position in terms of the main race. But we should sail past Stoffel Van Dorn, you would have thought, on the next straight. I wonder where Fernando Alonso is. He has a much better race, I think, than Stoffel Van Dorn. Coming onto the DRS straight, though, I don't think Van Dorn's going to give us much of a problem. Even without DRS, we would have sailed past him. But Pierre Gasly's still out there. I assume Fernando Alonso might be leading this race. I think now he's in P2. Crucially for us, though, we have got past Stoffel Van Dorn, and he's going to be the man who keeps Valtteri Bottas and Sebastian Vettel behind. Vettel is running very closely to Valtteri Bottas, or that might be Sergei Sorokin, actually. Sorokin, I think, not Valtteri Bottas. But we've definitely gained out of these pit stops. I did think earlier that because we were held up in the pits, there was a chance of the overcut from the other two drivers, but it hasn't happened as yet. And if we keep driving like this, we could be in for a second win of the year. Bottas finally got past Van Dorn on the start-finish straight, but Van Dorn has done us a real solid here because he's increased the gap between us and our opponents in behind. Valtteri's 2.3 seconds behind us now, so quite a way back. Sebastian Vettel has got DRS on Valtteri Bottas, so is it going to be the same move he pulled on Lewis Hamilton earlier in the race? And it looks like it is. And Lewis Hamilton, I think he's running P4 net still, but again, he doesn't have much luck in this series, given that he did start P2 and it looks like he's dropped behind both of his rivals now and he's P4. Fastest lap of the race as well, so it's no fluke that we are out in the lead net, albeit because Fernando Alonso still leads this race. By my very quick calculations, we're going to gain 10 points on Valtteri Bottas here, which will put us 1 point behind him. Vettel was 3 points behind Valtteri, or was it 2? I think Vettel was 2 points behind Valtteri, wasn't he? So that'll put Vettel gaining 3, 1 point ahead. So there'll be 2 points, I think, between the top 3 in the championship if it ends like this. How much closer can it get? Seems to really be in the flow of this circuit. Another fastest lap here in France, which again, I'll say, for about the 6th time, probably really does surprise me because I hadn't got much experience around this circuit. But it's just a circuit that seems to have suited my driving style here. Sebastian Vettel is 3.6 seconds behind. Valtteri Bottas still in his DRS. Looking at the mini-map, Lewis Hamilton a bit of a distant 4th, so it is going to be a battle for second between Valtteri and Seb. But to be honest, I don't think they're going to touch us here unless there's a mistake. Well, the positions have changed again. Valtteri has jumped Seb for the time being. That is going to be a battle, I think, particularly down that back straight we've just been down, that rumbles on until the final lap of this race. So 5 minutes till rainfall expected. Again, I think it's going to be the last lap. So unless it comes down like we have showers in England now, like it just seems to be a flash flood where all of a sudden it's dry and then 30 seconds later it's hammering it down. Unless it comes down like that, I don't think there's going to be any risk. But you never know. Well, the skies are a little bit darker here at Paul Ricard, but I don't think there's going to be any rain that falls that harms us at the end of this race. We haven't been challenged in this Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel and Valtteri Bottas in their DRS fights, 8 seconds behind us, so no issue there. But Vettel could be he's under no pressure really from Valtteri Bottas from that straight. And I think that is probably the last overtaking opportunity that Bottas has got. So we could be on for a second Ferrari 1-2 in a row. The rain definitely is going to start pretty quickly here because the skies are getting a lot darker. But not a lot you can really show in a race where we have led pretty much start to finish. Our pit stop did worry me because I thought that we would have a problem with being overcut by Vettel and Bottas, but the guys in that train, Van Dorn in particular, did us a real help and got us that few seconds cushion that we needed. And coming out of the final corner here at Le Castellet, it is our second win of the season after Spain and puts us really in the hunt now for a championship fight.
Nice work, that's P1. Race win, well done.
Welcome then to the podium, our top 3 drivers. What a great effort from them today in a very difficult race.
Within 8 races then, we've eclipsed Kimi's total for the 2018 season. Of course, only 1 win in real life. That came at Texas. But we've took 2 in the first 8. And the 3 drivers on the podium, I think we're going to have to get used to this because this is the battle for the championship we'll see. The championship battle that is going to be so close, I think, in the standings by my calculations. And we're going to look at that first rather than the race result because surely, by my calculations, it is so close. And look at that. Look at that. 2 points in it at the top between 3 drivers. Could you write it? I don't think you could. Sebastian Vettel takes the lead of the championship for the first time. Yeah, for the first time. Daniel Ricciardo led it after the Australian Grand Prix after he won. But Valtteri Bottas has led it ever since. Bottas has brought us back in really after a couple of poor races. Didn't finish on the podium in Monaco. He ran into the back of us. And in Canada had an incident with Hamilton, I think. That meant that he didn't finish on the podium there. So that's brought ourselves and Seb back into it. 2 1-2s in a row for Ferrari. The other way around, albeit today. So a race win for Raikkonen. 2 points behind Seb. Only a point behind Valtteri Bottas. Our constructors' lead is now 80 points. That is a really strong lead to have at this point in the season. And Daniel Ricciardo, the 4th driver to break a ton as well, 37 points behind. If he can get some results together, I don't quite think he's got the consistency of results in that car, but you simply never know, then he can get into it. But 81 points behind there for Lewis Hamilton. After 8 races, already 3 races behind in terms of race points. Just don't think it's going to happen for Lewis this season. But let's have a look at what happened then, the story of this race. We just had the pace today. You can see our fastest lap wasn't challenged by the rest of the grid. Any talking points? One of the talking points, I think, has to be Pierre Gasly's rise from P15 on the grid to take a P9 result. Clearly, the McLaren strategy didn't work out of pitting onto the ultra softs late on. Stoffel Van Dorn, yes, gained a couple of places into P15, but Fernando Alonso finished all the way down at the back. So a solid result for us this weekend. I couldn't be happy with that. 2 1-2s in a row for Ferrari. And all of a sudden, this season is finally starting to get into the groove. I think we're at Silverstone next. Am I right in saying that we're at Silverstone? No, it's Austria. It's Austria for the next race. So the Red Bull ring. Can Red Bull get a 3rd race win of the season? I've talked about Daniel Ricciardo being a potential outlier, a potential underdog to get back into this championship race. But at the moment, it is very much advantage Ferrari. Thank you for your company today. I hope you've enjoyed that one. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe for regular F1 2018 Kimi Career content. And until the next time, thank you for your company today. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.